Welcome back to True Footballing Icons, where every week we celebrate the players who didn't just play football, they helped define it. This week, we're taking you on a journey across Europe and South America to relive the careers of 7 extraordinary footballers. A midfielder who conquered Europe more than anyone else. A Ballon d'Or winner whose transfer shook the football world. A striker who overcame life-threatening heart surgery to become one of Africa's greatest heroes. A defender who redefined elegance at the heart of a defense. A midfield maestro who controlled matches with intelligence rather than speed. A Brazilian whose smile and movement reminded us why football is called the beautiful game. And finally, one of the most charismatic, confident, and spectacular footballers the sport has ever seen. From unforgettable goals, to legendary trophies, to moments that changed football forever. These are the stories that made them icons. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another collection of football's greatest legends. This is True Footballing Icons. Our first story begins with the only player in football history to win the UEFA Champions League with 3 different clubs. Some footballers become legends at one club. Others spend their careers searching for the perfect team. Clarence Seedorf did something almost impossible. He became a champion. Wherever he went. Different countries. Different leagues. Different teammates. Different managers. It never seemed to matter. Because every great team that needed control turned to Clarence Seedorf. Elegant with the ball. Powerful without it. Blessed with extraordinary vision. And trusted on football's biggest nights. This is the story of the midfielder who conquered Europe. Clarence Clyde Seedorf was born on the 1st of April, 1976, in Paramaribo, Suriname. When he was just a child, his family moved to the Netherlands. It was there that his football journey truly began. Even at a young age, he stood out. Not because he was flashy, but because he understood the game. He always seemed one pass ahead, one movement ahead, one decision ahead, while others chased the ball. Seedorf controlled it. His talent quickly earned him a place in Ajax's famous academy. A production line that had already created some of football's greatest players. The standards were relentless. Technique, discipline, intelligence. Every young footballer was expected to master them all. Clarence Seedorf didn't just meet those standards. He exceeded them. At just 16 years old, he made his first team debut for Ajax, becoming one of the youngest players ever to represent the club. Most teenagers simply hoped to survive. Seedorf looked like he belonged. Strong, composed, fearless. Nothing about him suggested inexperience. He demanded the ball. He dictated the tempo. He played with a confidence that couldn't be taught. Ajax were building one of the greatest young teams in European football. Edwin van der Sar, Frank Rijkaard, Frank de Boer, Ronald de Boer, Edgar Davids, Patrick Kluivert, Mark Overmars. Young stars, destined for greatness. Among them, Clarence Seedorf quietly became one of the most important. Not the loudest. Not the most glamorous. Simply one of the most reliable. Then came the 1994-95 season. A season that would define a generation. Ajax swept through Europe playing fearless football. Fast. Technical. Intelligent. In the UEFA Champions League, they reached the final against AC Milan, one of Europe's giants. Few expected the young Dutch side to prevail, but they did. Patrick Kluivert scored the winner. Ajax became champions of Europe. And at just 19 years old, Clarence Seedorf had already lifted football's greatest club trophy. Most players spend a career chasing that dream. Seedorf achieved it before turning 20. Europe's biggest clubs were watching. A midfielder with strength, grace, vision, leadership, and a Champions League medal. He had become one of football's brightest young stars. The next challenge wouldn't be staying at the top. It would be proving he could do it somewhere else. In 1995, he joined Sampdoria. Many questioned the decision. Why leave the European champions? The answer was simple. Clarence Seedorf never feared change. He embraced it. One outstanding season in Italy proved he could thrive outside the Netherlands. Once again, Europe took notice. This time, Real Madrid came calling. Few clubs carry greater pressure than Real Madrid. History demands success. Nothing less is accepted. Could the young Dutch midfielder handle football's biggest stage? Could he lead another giant of European football? Clarence Seedorf wasn't just about to answer those questions. He was about to begin building one of the most unique legacies football has ever seen. Real Madrid isn't a club that waits for players to grow. It expects them to win. Clarence Seedorf arrived knowing exactly what that meant. Every pass would be judged. Every performance analyzed. Every mistake remembered. Pressure has broken many great footballers. Seedorf thrived under it. From the moment he stepped into Real Madrid's midfield, he looked completely at home. Strong enough to dominate physical battles. Technically gifted enough to control possession. And intelligent enough to dictate the rhythm of the biggest matches. He wasn't a midfielder who chased the game. He controlled it. The faster football became, the calmer Clarence Seedorf looked. Then came another unforgettable European campaign. The 1997-98 UEFA Champions League. Real Madrid had waited 32 years to lift Europe's greatest prize again. The pressure was enormous. Every player understood what was at stake. Seedorf was one of the driving forces behind the team's success. In the final, Real Madrid defeated Juventus. The trophy returned to Madrid. For the second time in his career, Clarence Seedorf was a European champion, with 2 different clubs, before the age of 23. A remarkable achievement. Yet perhaps his greatest quality wasn't lifting trophies. It was adapting. Different countries, different teammates, different expectations. It never mattered. Wherever he went, he found a way to succeed. That ability made him one of football's most complete midfielders. In 1999, another adventure began. Inter Milan. Italian football demanded tactical discipline, physical strength, patience. Seedorf possessed all 3. He produced moments of breathtaking quality, including one unforgettable match against Juventus, where he scored 2 spectacular long-range goals. The kind of strikes only a midfielder with supreme technique could produce. Supporters couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Neither could the goalkeeper. Although major trophies proved difficult to win at Inter, Seedorf's reputation continued to grow. Managers trusted him. Teammates admired him. Opponents respected him. He could defend, attack, create, score, lead. There seemed to be nothing he couldn't do. Then, in 2002, came a move that would define his career. AC Milan. A club filled with football royalty. Paolo Maldini, Alessandro Nesta, Andrea Pirlo, Gennaro Gattuso, Filippo Inzaghi, Kaká, Andriy Shevchenko. It was a team packed with superstars. Yet Clarence Seedorf never looked out of place. He elevated them. Carlo Ancelotti understood exactly what he had. A midfielder capable of doing everything. One moment, breaking up an attack. The next, launching one of his own. He could play deep, play higher up the pitch, control possession, or produce moments of brilliance from nowhere. Very few footballers have ever been so complete. Then came Old Trafford. The 2003 UEFA Champions League final. AC Milan. Juventus. 90 minutes couldn't separate them. Neither could extra time. The final would be decided on penalties. Once again, Clarence Seedorf stood on the biggest stage in club football. AC Milan emerged victorious. For the 3rd time, he lifted the Champions League. And this time, with a 3rd different European giant. Ajax. Real Madrid. AC Milan. Football had never seen anything quite like it. Most players dream of winning the Champions League once. Clarence Seedorf had now conquered Europe. Again. And again. But his greatest chapter was still to come. Because at AC Milan, Clarence Seedorf wasn't just collecting trophies. He was building a legacy. That would make him one of the greatest midfielders of his generation. By 2003, Clarence Seedorf had already achieved what most footballers only dream about. 3 Champions League titles. 3 different clubs. 3 different footballing cultures. Ajax. Real Madrid. AC Milan. No player had ever conquered Europe quite like that. But Clarence Seedorf wasn't finished. At AC Milan, He entered the greatest years of his career. Every season, he remained one of the first names on Carlo Ancelotti's team sheet. Because managers knew exactly what they were getting. Consistency, leadership, intelligence. When the biggest matches arrived, Seedorf always seemed to play his best football. He slowed the game down when others rushed. He sped it up when others hesitated. He made the difficult look remarkably simple. The Champions League became his stage. Year after year, Milan challenged Europe's very best. Then came Athens, the 2007 Champions League final. Liverpool stood in the way. 2 years earlier, Milan had suffered one of football's most painful defeats in Istanbul, leading 3-0, only to lose on penalties. Many teams never recover from heartbreak like that. This Milan side did. And Clarence Seedorf helped lead the response. AC Milan defeated Liverpool 2-1. Revenge was complete. For the 4th time, Clarence Seedorf lifted the Champions League trophy. No player had ever won Europe's greatest competition with 3 different clubs. Football history had been made. His achievements weren't built on luck or timing. They were built on trust. Every manager trusted him. Louis van Gaal, Guus Hiddink, Vicente Del Bosque, Carlo Ancelotti. Each saw the same qualities. A midfielder who understood football better than almost anyone else. Someone who could adapt to any system and improve every team around him. That is an incredibly rare gift. His international career with the Netherlands was equally impressive. More than 80 caps. European Championships. World Cups. Sharing a dressing room with some of Dutch football's greatest names. Although international silverware narrowly escaped him, his influence on the national team never diminished. He represented his country with the same composure and professionalism that defined his entire career. As his playing days drew to a close, his love of football never faded. He stepped into management, determined to pass on everything he had learned across 2 decades at the very highest level. Because great football minds rarely leave the game behind. They simply find new ways to shape it. So, what made Clarence Seedorf different? Was it his strength? His passing? His powerful shooting? His vision? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He understood football. Not just his own role. The entire game. He knew when to speed up, when to slow down, when to attack, when to protect possession, when to inspire, and when to lead. That football intelligence allowed him to succeed wherever he went. Different leagues, different teammates, different managers. The result was almost always the same. Success. Very few players can honestly say they changed the fortunes of Europe's biggest clubs. Clarence Seedorf can. Ajax, Real Madrid, AC Milan. Each chapter added another piece to an extraordinary legacy. Not through headlines, not through controversy, through excellence. Week after week, season after season. Perhaps that's why teammates valued him so highly. He never chased individual glory. He chased victories. He made everyone around him better. And football has always had room for players like that. Football has produced countless world-class midfielders. Some dazzled with flair. Some dominated with power. Some dictated matches with passing. Clarence Seedorf did all of it. A complete midfielder. A born winner. A footballer whose intelligence, strength and elegance allowed him to conquer Europe like no one before him. And that's why Clarence Seedorf will always be remembered as the midfielder who conquered Europe. And above all, a true footballing icon. Some football transfers change a season. Others change football forever. One signature divided a nation. One decision turned a hero into a villain. Supporters burned shirts. A stadium erupted with hatred. And years later, people still talk about it. But before Luís Figo became football's most controversial transfer, he had already become one of the greatest footballers in the world. This is the story of the transfer that shook football. Luís Felipe Madeira Ciaro Figo was born on the 4th of November, 1972, in Almada, Portugal. From an early age, his talent stood apart. He wasn't simply quick. He wasn't simply skillful. He possessed balance, vision, Creativity. The ability to glide past defenders as though the ball was tied to his feet. Football looked effortless. His journey began at Sporting CP. Portugal has always produced gifted footballers. But this generation felt different. Alongside Rui Costa, João Pinto, and others, Figo became part of the famous golden generation. The young Portuguese side captured the imagination of Europe, winning the FIFA World Youth Championship twice. Scouts across the continent knew exactly what they were watching. Future stars. At Sporting, Figo quickly established himself as one of Portugal's brightest talents. Every week, he tormented fullbacks. His crossing was exceptional. His dribbling mesmerizing. His decision-making remarkably mature. He could beat defenders on the outside, cut inside with ease, or create chances nobody else had even seen. Before long, Europe's biggest clubs were fighting for his signature. In 1995, Barcelona won that race. For many players, joining Barcelona represents the dream. For Luís Figo, it became the stage where he announced himself as one of football's elite. Under Johan Cruyff, and later Bobby Robson and Louis van Gaal, his game reached extraordinary heights. Camp Nou fell in love with him. Supporters adored the Portuguese winger. He wasn't just producing assists. He was deciding matches, week after week. His pace, intelligence, and flawless technique overwhelmed defenders. Every attack seemed to flow through him. He became the heartbeat of Barcelona's attack. Success followed. La Liga titles, the Copa del Rey, European trophies, individual awards. Then, in the year 2000, Luís Figo reached another milestone. He won the Ballon d'Or, officially recognized as the best footballer in the world. For Barcelona supporters, he wasn't simply another great player. He was their captain, their leader, their icon. Many believed he would spend the rest of his career wearing blue and red. Then, everything changed. Real Madrid presidential candidate Florentino Perez made an astonishing promise. If he won the election, he would sign Luís Figo. Almost everyone laughed. Barcelona's captain joining their greatest rivals? Impossible. Supporters dismissed it. Journalists questioned it. Even Figo himself appeared relaxed. No one believed it could actually happen. Then election day arrived. Perez won. The impossible had suddenly become possible. Football was about to witness the most controversial transfer the game had ever seen. The impossible had happened. Luís Figo had left Barcelona to join Real Madrid. Not just any club, Barcelona's greatest rivals, for a world record transfer fee. Football had never witnessed anything quite like it. Supporters were stunned. Barcelona felt betrayed. Real Madrid celebrated. Spain was divided. Overnight, one of football's most loved players became one of its most hated. The anger was unlike anything seen before. Figo wasn't just another departing player. He had been Barcelona's captain, their leader, their hero. Supporters had sung his name, worn his shirt, celebrated his goals. Now, they saw him wearing white. For many fans, it felt unforgivable. Then came one of football's most infamous nights. November 2002. Camp Nou. Barcelona against Real Madrid. Every touch Figo took was greeted by deafening whistle. Even a pig's head was thrown towards the corner flag as he prepared to take a corner. The image traveled around the world. It became one of the most iconic and shocking moments in football history. Few players have ever faced such hostility. Yet Figo never walked away. He stood over the ball, waited, and carried on. That moment summed him up. Composed, fearless, professional. It would have been easy for the pressure to consume him. Many players would have crumbled. Luís Figo responded the only way he knew, by playing football. Week after week, he justified Real Madrid's faith. His crossing remained exceptional. His dribbling mesmerized defenders. His consistency never disappeared. The transfer may have dominated the headlines, but his football continued to speak louder. Real Madrid weren't simply building a team. They were building the Galacticos. And Luís Figo was the first piece of the puzzle. Soon came Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo Nazario, David Beckham, some of the greatest footballers of their generation. Yet before any of them, there was Figo. He was the signing that changed everything. The player who launched a new era at the Santiago Bernabeu. Success quickly followed. Real Madrid won La Liga. Then another. In 2002, they reached the UEFA Champions League final against Bayer Leverkusen. The match is remembered for Zinedine Zidane's unforgettable volley. But throughout that European campaign, Figo had been one of Madrid's driving forces. When the final whistle blew, Real Madrid were champions of Europe. Luís Figo had done what many believed impossible. He had left Barcelona, joined their greatest rivals, and delivered exactly what they had paid for. By now, the controversy hadn't disappeared. Barcelona supporters still couldn't forgive him. Every return to Camp Nou brought another hostile reception. But something else was becoming impossible to ignore. Real Madrid hadn't just signed a headline. They had signed one of the finest wingers in world football. His decision would always divide opinion. His quality never did. The transfer changed football forever. But Luís Figo's legacy was about far more than one controversial decision. As the years passed, the noise slowly faded. The headlines disappeared. The controversy became history. What remained was football. And Luís Figo never stopped proving his quality. At Real Madrid, he became far more than the player who crossed football's greatest divide. He became a leader, a creator, a winner. Every week, he delivered the same elegance that had made him one of the world's finest footballers. His balance, his vision, his flawless first touch, the ability to glide past defenders before delivering the perfect cross. Very few wide players in football history combined intelligence and technique quite like Luís Figo. The trophies continued to arrive. 2 La Liga titles, the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Super Cup, the Intercontinental Cup, Spanish Super Cups. For Real Madrid, the world record fee had been justified. They hadn't simply signed a superstar. They had signed a footballer capable of changing the course of the club's history. Yet Figo's influence stretched far beyond club football. With Portugal, he helped transform the national team. For decades, Portugal had produced gifted individuals. Now, they were becoming genuine contenders. Alongside Rui Costa, Fernando Couto, and a young Cristiano Ronaldo, Figo inspired a new generation. His leadership became just as important as his talent. Then came UEFA Euro 2004. Hosted in Portugal, the nation dreamed of lifting its first major trophy. Figo led from the front. Portugal reached the final. Only Greece stood between them and history. Football can be cruel. Against all expectations, Greece won. Heartbreak returned. But Figo's legacy with Portugal had already been secured. He had helped lay the foundations for one of international football's great modern eras. In 2005, another challenge awaited. Inter Milan. Many believed his greatest years were behind him. Instead, he reinvented himself once again. No longer relying on explosive pace. He relied on experience, vision, positioning, football intelligence, the qualities that never fade. At Inter, success followed once more. Serie A titles, domestic cups, more silverware, another dressing room strengthened by his presence. Different country, different teammates. The same result. Winning. Because truly great footballers don't rely on one system or one league. They adapt. They evolve. They endure. So, what is Luís Figo's true legacy? Was it the transfer? The Ballon d'Or? The Champions League? The trophies? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He had the courage to make the biggest decision of his career, knowing millions would never forgive him. Whether people agreed with that decision or not, it demanded extraordinary conviction. Then, he did the hardest thing of all. He justified it. Not with interviews. Not with excuses. With performances. Week after week. Season after season. He let his football answer every question. Today, supporters still debate that famous transfer. Some call it betrayal. Others call it ambition. But nobody questions Luís Figo's ability. He remains one of the greatest wingers his generation produced. A Ballon d'Or winner. A Champions League winner. A footballer whose elegance and consistency made him world-class for almost 2 decades. Football has witnessed thousands of transfers. Most are forgotten. One changed history. Not because of the money. Not because of the headlines. But because it involved one of the finest footballers in the world. Luís Figo didn't just make football's most controversial move. He made one of its most successful. And that's why Luís Figo will always be remembered as the transfer that shook football. And above all, a true footballing icon. Some footballers become legends because of the trophies they win. Others, because of the goals they score. Nwankwo Kanu became a legend because he refused to let impossible defeat him. When the world saw obstacles, he saw opportunity. When others thought his career was over, he was only getting started. A football genius blessed with extraordinary vision, silky technique, and a smile that never disappeared. His story isn't just about football. It's about hope, courage, and proving that miracles can happen. This is the story of the Miracle Man. Kanu was born on the 1st of August, 1976, in Owerri, Nigeria. From an early age, his talent was impossible to ignore. Standing over 6 feet tall, he moved with the grace of a much smaller player. His first touch was effortless, his passing imaginative, his dribbling elegant. He could glide past defenders with a calmness that made the extraordinary look routine. There simply wasn't another player quite like him. His professional career began with Iwanyanu National in Nigeria. It didn't take long for Europe to notice. Young, fearless, technically gifted, Kanu possessed all the qualities of a future superstar. In 1993, Dutch giants Ajax made their move. It would prove to be the beginning of something special. Ajax had built a reputation for developing world-class footballers. Their academy demanded intelligence, discipline, and technical excellence. Kanu fitted perfectly, surrounded by players such as Edwin van der Sar, Frank Rijkaard, Clarence Seedorf, Edgar Davids, Patrick Kluivert, and Marc Overmars. He continued to grow. His confidence flourished. His football matured. And Europe began to take notice. Then came the 1994-95 season. Ajax produced one of the greatest Champions League campaigns in history. Young, fearless, unbeaten. They defeated AC Milan in the final to become champions of Europe. At just 18 years old, Kanu had already lifted the biggest trophy in club football. Most players spend an entire career chasing that moment. Kanu had achieved it before turning 19. His rise continued with Nigeria. The world was beginning to discover a remarkable generation of footballers. Fast, fearless, exceptionally talented. Then came the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. Few believed Nigeria could compete with football's traditional giants. Kanu believed. Against Brazil, Nigeria trailed 3-1. The match appeared over. Kanu refused to accept defeat. He inspired an astonishing comeback. Then, in the final, Nigeria defeated Argentina. History had been made. The Super Eagles became the first African nation to win Olympic football gold. Kanu wasn't simply part of the team. He was its inspiration. Europe's biggest clubs were watching. Inter Milan secured his signature. It felt like the perfect next step. Champions League winner. Olympic champion. One of the most gifted young footballers on the planet. The future looked limitless. Then, everything changed. During his medical examinations, doctors discovered a serious heart defect. The diagnosis shocked the football world. Open heart surgery was needed immediately. Suddenly, football no longer mattered. The question wasn't how great Kanu could become. It was whether he would ever play again. Supporters prayed. Teammates hoped. Doctors could make no promises. One of football's brightest stars, was facing the biggest battle of his life. Many believed the story was over. They couldn't have been more wrong. Open heart surgery. For many people, it would have been the end of the story. For Kanu, it became the beginning of another one. The operation was a success. But success in the operating theatre didn't guarantee success on the football pitch. Months of rehabilitation followed. Every training session became another test. Every sprint, every touch, every heartbeat. Kanu wasn't just rebuilding his football career. He was rebuilding his life. Inter Milan stood by him. Supporters admired his courage. Yet breaking into one of Europe's strongest squads proved difficult. After such a long absence, regular football was hard to find. Kanu needed somewhere he could play. Somewhere he could smile again. Somewhere he could remind the world just how gifted he really was. That opportunity arrived in 1999. Arsene Wenger brought him to Arsenal. Some questioned the decision. Was Kanu still the player he had once been? Could he cope with the intensity of the Premier League? Had the heart condition taken too much away from him? Kanu never answered those questions with words. He answered them on the pitch. Standing 6 feet 6 inches tall, he played unlike any striker England had ever seen. Elegant, graceful, unpredictable. His first touch was extraordinary. His close control almost unbelievable. He could twist past defenders in the tightest spaces, produce impossible passes, or score out different. He brought imagination to every attack. Then came Stamford Bridge. October 1999. Chelsea led Arsenal 2-0. With less than 25 minutes remaining, the match looked over. Then Kanu happened. First, he pulled one back. Moments later, he equalized. Then, deep into stoppage time, came one of the Premier League's greatest goals. From an impossible angle, Kanu somehow curled the ball around the keeper and into the far corner. Hat trick. Arsenal had won 3-2. Even the Chelsea supporters applauded. It remains one of the most remarkable individual performances the Premier League has ever seen. The trophies soon followed. Premier League champion. FA Cup winner. Another double. Then, the Invincibles. The 2003-04 season. Arsenal completed an entire Premier League campaign without losing a single match. History had been made. Kanu wasn't always in the starting 11. But his contribution was invaluable. Whenever Arsene Wenger needed experience, quality, or a moment of inspiration, Kanu delivered. That is the mark of a true team player. Supporters loved him. Not just because of the goals. Because of the joy he played with. There was never any arrogance. Never any bitterness. Only gratitude. Every time he walked onto a football pitch, it felt like he appreciated the privilege of simply being there. Because he understood something many footballers never have to. Playing again was a gift. By now, Kanu had achieved almost everything. A Champions League winner. An Olympic gold medalist. A Premier League champion. An Invincible. An FA Cup winner. Twice named African Footballer of the Year. The football world had witnessed one of its greatest comebacks. But perhaps, his greatest achievement had nothing to do with football at all. By the time Kanu left Arsenal, he had already achieved more than most footballers ever dream of. Yet somehow, those incredible achievements still don't tell the whole story. In 2004, Kanu joined West Bromwich Albion. Many believed his best years were behind him. Once again, he proved people wrong. His experience, his composure, and his football intelligence became priceless. Then came one of the greatest escapes in Premier League history. West Brom looked certain to be relegated. Bottom of the table at Christmas. No team had ever survived from that position. Yet against all the odds, they stayed up. History was made. Once again, Kanu had been part of something people believed impossible. Later, he joined Portsmouth. Even in the final years of his career, he continued to make the difference. Then came Wembley. The 2008 FA Cup final. Portsmouth faced Cardiff City. With the match finally balanced, Kanu scored the only goal. Portsmouth lifted the FA Cup. One of the greatest days in the club's history. Another winner's medal for one of football's greatest survivors. Wherever he went, He seemed to leave people believing. But perhaps Kanu's greatest contribution came away from football. After surviving heart surgery himself, he never forgot those who weren't as fortunate. He established the Kanu Heart Foundation, helping children across Africa receive life-saving heart operations, giving families hope, giving children a future, giving others the second chance that football had given him. That legacy reaches far beyond goals or trophies. So, what made Kanu different? Was it his first touch? His vision? His incredible composure? His remarkable career? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He never allowed adversity to define him. Many people would have accepted defeat. Many would have walked away. Kanu chose to fight. He returned. He inspired. And then, he used his own story to help thousands of others. That is bigger than football. Ask Arsenal supporters about Kanu, and they'll remember the impossible hat-trick against Chelsea. Ask Portsmouth supporters, and they'll remember the winning goal at Wembley. Ask Nigerians, and they'll remember a captain who inspired a nation. Ask children helped by the Kanu Heart Foundation, and they'll remember something even more important: hope. Very few footballers leave two legacies, one on the pitch, one beyond it. Kanu achieved both. He reminded us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's finding the strength to keep going when the future is uncertain. That is why his story continues to inspire millions around the world. Football has produced countless gifted players. Some won more trophies. Some scored more goals. Some enjoyed longer careers. But very few overcame what Kanu overcame. He conquered Europe. He conquered England. Most importantly, he conquered the greatest challenge of his life. And in doing so, he became an inspiration to generations far beyond football. That's why Kanu will always be remembered as the miracle man, and above all, a true footballing icon. There was a time when centre-backs were judged by one thing: stopping goals. Big tackles, powerful headers, clearances into the stands. That was enough. Then, Rio Ferdinand arrived. He defended with his mind. He played with elegance. He brought the ball out from the back when others simply booted it away. He could read danger before it appeared. And in doing so, he helped redefine what a modern centre-back could be. This is the story of the defender who changed the game. Rio Gavin Ferdinand was born on the 7th of November, 1978, in Peckham, South London. Sport surrounded him from an early age. His cousins would go on to become footballers. His family encouraged competition. But it didn't take long to realize Rio possessed something different. He wasn't just athletic. He was intelligent, calm under pressure. Even as a young boy, he always seemed to have more time on the ball than everyone else. His journey began in the famous West Ham United Academy, known as the Academy of Football. West Ham had developed generations of talented players. Rio quickly became one of its brightest prospects. Coaches noticed something unusual. Despite being a defender, he was one of the most comfortable footballers on the pitch. His passing was exceptional. His first touch effortless. He could step into midfield as naturally as he could make a last-ditch tackle. It was a rare combination. His senior debut came in 1996. Almost immediately, supporters recognized they were watching someone special. Rio didn't defend with panic. He defended with confidence. Rather than diving into tackles, he stayed on his feet. He anticipated danger, positioned himself perfectly, and made defending look almost effortless. Great defenders don't always make spectacular challenges. Often, they make sure they never need to. His performances soon attracted England's biggest clubs. In 2000, Leeds United paid a British record transfer fee for a defender. The expectation was enormous. Rio never looked intimidated. Elland Road became the stage where he announced himself as one of Europe's finest young defenders. Leeds were building an exciting side. Harry Kewell, Mark Viduka, Alan Smith, Jonathan Woodgate. Young, fearless, full of ambition. Rio became the foundation. His composure allowed the entire team to play with confidence, knowing he was behind them. Then came the UEFA Champions League. Leeds reached the semi-finals, one of the greatest European runs in the club's history. Facing some of the finest attackers in world football, Rio looked completely at home. Strong enough to compete physically, quick enough to recover, intelligent enough to stay one step ahead. Europe had discovered England's next great defender. In 2002, another record fell. Manchester United paid around £30 million for Rio Ferdinand. Once again, he became Britain's most expensive defender. Sir Alex Ferguson believed he had found the man who would lead United's defence for the next decade. Replacing legends at Old Trafford is never easy. The pressure is relentless. Every mistake is magnified. Every performance compared with the greats who came before. Rio accepted the challenge without hesitation. Old Trafford expected trophies. Nothing less. Could Rio Ferdinand become the next great Manchester United defender? Could he justify another record-breaking transfer fee? Very soon. He wouldn't just answer those questions. He would help redefine an entire position. Old Trafford demands excellence. Nothing less. Sir Alex Ferguson hadn't signed Rio Ferdinand simply to strengthen his defence. He believed he had signed the future. A defender capable of leading Manchester United into a new era. Rio embraced the responsibility. From the moment he arrived, his quality was unmistakable. He wasn't the defender flying into reckless tackles. He didn't need to be. His positioning was exceptional. His pace allowed him to recover when danger appeared. His composure meant Manchester United could build attacks from the back instead of simply clearing their lines. He made defending look effortless. That is often the sign of the very best. His partnership with Nwankwo soon became one of football's greatest. On paper, they were completely different players. Vidic was fearless, aggressive, dominant in the air. Rio was elegant, calm, a master at reading the game. Together, they complemented each other perfectly. One attacked every challenge. The other anticipated it before it happened. Together, they became the foundation of one of Europe's finest defences. Success quickly followed. Premier League titles, League Cups, FIFA Club World Cup. Year after year, Manchester United challenged for every major honour. At the heart of it all stood Rio Ferdinand. Reliable, consistent, world-class. He had justified every penny of his record transfer fee. Then came Moscow. The 2007-08 UEFA Champions League final. Manchester United. Chelsea. Two English giants. The match finished level after extra time. Everything came down to penalties. The shootout became one of the most dramatic in Champions League history. When Nicolas Anelka's penalty was saved, Manchester United were champions of Europe. Rio Ferdinand collapsed to the ground in celebration. Years of dedication had led to football's greatest prize. Champions of Europe. At last. By now, he wasn't simply regarded as England's best defender. Many believed he was among the finest centre-backs in world football. His reading of the game was extraordinary. His distribution outstanding. His recovery pace remarkable. He rarely looked rushed. Rarely looked uncomfortable. No matter who stood in front of him. Whether it was Didier Drogba, Thierry Henry, Fernando Torres, or Cristiano Ronaldo in training every single day, Rio always trusted his ability. His influence stretched beyond club football. For England, he became a regular at major tournaments. World Cups, European Championships, more than 80 international appearances. He carried himself with the same calm authority. Always composed. Always dependable. Always leading by example. Young defenders around the world began studying the way he played. Not because he made spectacular tackles, but because he often made sure they were never needed. He proved anticipation could be just as valuable as aggression. Intelligence just as important as strength. The modern centre-back was evolving, and Rio Ferdinand was leading that evolution. But perhaps his greatest legacy wouldn't be the medals he collected. It would be the way he changed how an entire generation viewed defending. By the late 2000s, Rio Ferdinand had become the benchmark. Young defenders didn't just want to stop goals. They wanted to play like Rio. Comfortable on the ball. Calm under pressure. Confident enough to start attacks instead of simply ending them. He had changed expectations. Manchester United continued to dominate English football. Premier League titles followed. League Cups. The FIFA Club World Cup. Season after season. Rio remained one of Sir Alex Ferguson's most trusted players. His consistency became one of his greatest strengths. Week after week, he delivered performances that rarely grabbed the headlines. Because the very best defenders often go unnoticed. If you barely mention their name during a match, it usually means they've done their job perfectly. As the years passed, Rio adapted. His explosive pace naturally began to fade. But his football intelligence continued to grow. He relied even more on positioning, experience, leadership. He understood the game so well that he often knew where the ball was going before it had even been passed. That is something no amount of speed can replace. His influence reached far beyond Manchester United. Young defenders across the world began modeling their game on him. Instead of diving into tackles, they stayed patient. Instead of clearing the ball aimlessly, they looked for a pass. Instead of defending through fear, they defended through intelligence. Rio Ferdinand had helped redefine what coaches expected from an elite centre-back. His individual honours reflected his remarkable consistency. 6 Premier League titles. The UEFA Champions League. The FIFA Club World Cup. League Cups. Numerous elections in the PFA Team of the Year. Recognition from teammates. Respect from opponents. Admiration from supporters. Few defenders remained at the very top for as long as Rio Ferdinand. Away from football, life presented challenges no one could prepare for. In 2015, his wife, Rebecca Ellison, sadly passed away after battling cancer. It was an unimaginable loss. Rio later spoke openly about grief, fatherhood, mental health. His honesty helped many people facing similar struggles. Once again, he showed leadership, not on a football pitch, but in life. Following his retirement, Rio remained close to the game, working as a television pundit, sharing his knowledge, breaking down defending with the same intelligence that had defined his playing career. A new generation discovered why he had been so special, not simply because he won trophies, but because he understood football at the highest level. So, what made Rio Ferdinand different? Was it his pace? His passing? His composure? His leadership? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He made defending look easy. The greatest defenders aren't always the ones making spectacular last-ditch tackles. They're the ones who stop danger before it ever develops. Rio mastered that art. He read the game, trusted his instincts, and gave his teammates confidence every time he stepped onto the pitch. Today, almost every elite centre-back is expected to play out from the back, to stay composed under pressure, to begin attacks with intelligent passing. When Rio Ferdinand was doing it, that wasn't the norm. He helped shape the modern defender. His influence can still be seen every weekend across world football. Football has produced countless outstanding defenders. Some were warriors. Some were leaders. Some relied on strength alone. Rio Ferdinand brought something different. Elegance. Intelligence. Composure. He proved that a defender could dominate a match without flying into tackles. That reading the game could be just as powerful as winning it. And in doing so, he changed how the position would be played for generations to come. That's why Rio Ferdinand will always be remembered as the defender who changed the game. And above all, a true footballing icon. Football has always celebrated speed, power, skill, goals. But some players dominate a match without any of those things. They don't need tricks. They don't need blistering pace. They don't even need to score. They simply control everything. The tempo, the rhythm, the space, the game itself. And nobody did it better than Xabi Alonso. This is the story of the master of control. Xabi Alonso Olano was born on the 25th of November, 1981, in Tolosa, Spain. Football ran through his family. His father, Perico Alonso, had won La Liga titles with both Real Sociedad and Barcelona. From an early age, Xabi understood the game differently. He wasn't the fastest child, nor the strongest. Instead, he watched. He analyzed. He anticipated. Qualities that would later define one of football's greatest midfield careers. His journey began at Real Sociedad. It didn't take long for coaches to recognize his extraordinary football intelligence. While others chased the ball, Alonso seemed to know exactly where it would arrive next. His passing was already exceptional. Short, long, driven, delicate. Every pass carried purpose. Every touch brought calm. By the age of 21, he had become Real Sociedad's captain. A remarkable achievement for someone so young. Leading by example rather than by shouting. His composure inspired everyone around him. During the 2002-03 season, Real Sociedad came agonizingly close to winning La Liga. Few had expected them to challenge Spain's giants. Xabi Alonso was the heartbeat of that remarkable team. Europe had taken notice. In the summer of 2004, Liverpool came calling. Manager Rafael Benitez believed he had found the perfect midfielder. Someone capable of dictating matches. Someone who could transform Liverpool's style of play. Alonso didn't disappoint. His range of passing immediately stood out. 40-yard switches. Perfect through balls. Crossfield passes that landed exactly where he intended. He wasn't simply passing the football. He was conducting the match. Then came one of football's greatest nights. The UEFA Champions League final. Istanbul. Liverpool faced AC Milan. At half-time, they trailed 3-0. Against one of the greatest teams ever assembled. The match appeared over. Football history suggested it was impossible. Liverpool fought back. 3 goals in 6 unforgettable minutes. Then, with the score at 3-2, Liverpool were awarded a penalty. Alonso stepped forward. His initial effort was saved, but he reacted instantly, scoring the rebound. The comeback was complete. After penalties, Liverpool became champions of Europe, one of football's greatest miracles. And at the center of it stood Xabi Alonso, calm, composed, never allowing the occasion to overwhelm him. The years that followed only strengthened his reputation. He became known for scoring spectacular goals from inside his own half. His vision seemed almost supernatural. He could spot a run before it had even begun. He could switch the play with effortless precision. Opponents chased shadows, while Alonso controlled the game with almost effortless authority. By now, he had established himself as one of Europe's finest midfielders. But another challenge was waiting. The biggest club in Spain wanted him. Real Madrid. A team filled with superstars. A club where only the very best survive. Could Xabi Alonso control the biggest stage in world football, just as he had everywhere else? The answer would define an extraordinary career. Real Madrid. For many players, it's the ultimate dream. For Xabi Alonso, it was the ultimate test. In 2009, he returned to Spain. The expectations were enormous. The pressure relentless. Every pass scrutinized. Every mistake magnified. But Xabi Alonso had never been a player who was intimidated by pressure. He welcomed it. Real Madrid were assembling one of the most talented squads football had ever seen. Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Karim Benzema, Sergio Ramos. Later, Luka Modric. Everywhere you looked, there were world-class players. Yet every great team needs balance. Someone to connect defense with attack. Someone to dictate the rhythm. That player was Xabi Alonso. Under José Mourinho, Real Madrid became one of Europe's most feared sides. Powerful, clinical, relentless. While others grabbed the headlines, Alonso quietly controlled everything behind the scenes. His passing launched devastating counterattacks. His positioning protected the defense. His composure allowed Madrid to play with confidence. He wasn't the loudest player, but he was often the most important. Then came the 2011-12 season. Real Madrid produced one of the greatest league campaigns in Spanish football history. 100 points. 121 goals. A record-breaking season. They ended Barcelona's dominance to lift the La Liga title. Throughout it all, Alonso remained the heartbeat of the midfield. Rarely spectacular, almost always outstanding. While club success continued, international football brought an even greater legacy. Spain were entering the greatest era in their history. Alongside Sergio Busquets, Xavi, Andrés Iniesta, David Silva, and Iker Casillas, Xabi Alonso helped form one of the finest international teams football has ever seen. Each midfielder offered something different. Xavi controlled possession. Iniesta unlocked defenses. Busquets protected the backline. Alonso connected everything. He was the balance. The calm in the middle of the storm. UEFA Euro 2008. Spain ended decades of disappointment by becoming European champions. It wasn't simply a trophy. It was the beginning of a footballing revolution. 2 years later, came the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Spain reached the final. One goal separated them from history. When Andrés Iniesta scored in extra time, Spain became world champions for the very first time. For Xabi Alonso, it was the crowning moment of an extraordinary international career. The success didn't stop there. UEFA Euro 2012. Spain returned stronger than ever. They dominated Europe once again, defeating Italy 4-0 in the final. 3 consecutive major international tournaments. An achievement never seen before. At the heart of that historic team stood Xabi Alonso. 114 appearances for his country. A century of caps. A World Cup. 2 European Championships. He had helped redefine Spanish football forever. Back at Real Madrid, another dream remained. La Decima. The club's long-awaited 10th European Cup. In 2014, Madrid finally reached the Champions League final against city rivals Atletico Madrid. But there was heartbreak. Alonso was suspended after receiving a yellow card in the semi-final. He could only watch from the sidelines. When Sergio Ramos scored that dramatic late equalizer, and Real Madrid went on to win 4-1 after extra time, Alonso celebrated with his teammates. His contribution throughout the campaign had been immense. Although he couldn't play in the final, he had helped make La Decima possible. Most players would have ended their careers there. But Xabi Alonso still had one final chapter to write. La Decima had finally been won. The World Cup had been conquered. 2 European Championships had been lifted. For most players, there would have been nothing left to prove. Not for Xabi Alonso. In the summer of 2014, he accepted one final challenge. Bayern Munich, Germany's biggest club. Pep Guardiola wanted a midfielder capable of controlling every second of a football match. Few players in history were better suited. Despite entering the latter stages of his career, Alonso adapted immediately. Different country, different league, different style. The same result. He controlled games with remarkable ease. Watching Xabi Alonso was like watching a chess grandmaster. He always seemed 2 or 3 moves ahead. Before a teammate made a run, Alonso had already seen it. Before opponents closed him down, the ball was gone. 1 touch, 2 touches, a perfectly weighted pass. Football looked simple, only because he made it look that way. Success followed once again. Bundesliga titles, the DFB Pokal, German Super Cups, another league, another collection of trophies. Wherever Xabi Alonso played, winning followed. Not because he scored the most goals, not because he was the quickest, but because every great team needs someone capable of bringing order to chaos. That player was Xabi Alonso. When he announced his retirement in 2017, football said goodbye to one of its greatest midfield conductors. His honors spoke for themselves. A FIFA World Cup, 2 UEFA European Championships, 2 UEFA Champions League titles in Spain and Germany, and domestic cups in England. More than 100 appearances for Spain. Few midfielders have built a career quite so complete. Retirement, however, was never going to be the end. It was simply the beginning of another chapter. Alonso returned to the game as a coach. First with Real Madrid's youth teams. Then Real Sociedad B. It quickly became clear. His football intelligence hadn't disappeared. It had evolved. Then came Bayer Leverkusen, one of Germany's most historic clubs. A club that had often come painfully close to greatness, without quite reaching it. Xabi Alonso changed that. His team played with intelligence, courage, control, the same qualities that had defined his own playing career. In the 2023-24 season, he guided Bayer Leverkusen to their first-ever Bundesliga title. Even more remarkably, they completed the league campaign unbeaten, ending Bayern Munich's long domination of German football. It was one of the greatest managerial achievements of the modern era. The master of control had become the master on the touchline. So, what made Xabi Alonso different? Was it his passing? His vision? His leadership? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He understood football. Not just how to play it. How to control it. He knew when to slow the tempo. When to increase it. When to press. When to wait. When to play the simple pass. And when to produce one that changed the entire match. Very few footballers have ever possessed that level of intelligence. Today, his influence can still be seen across world football. Midfielders continue to study his positioning, his composure, his extraordinary range of passing. Managers admire the way he reads the game. Supporters remember the elegance with which he dictated matches. He never needed to be the loudest player. The game always listened to him anyway. Football has produced many great midfielders. Some were creators. Some were warriors. Some were goal scorers. Xabi Alonso was something rarer. A conductor. A footballer who could control the rhythm of an entire stadium with one perfectly weighted pass. As a player, he mastered the game. As a manager, he is shaping its future. And that's why Xabi Alonso will always be remembered as the master of control. And above all, a true footballing icon. Some footballers are remembered for power. Others, for pace. Bebeto was remembered for something much simpler. Joy. Every touch. Every pass. Every goal. He played with a smile that reminded the world why people fall in love with football. Elegant. Intelligent. Clinical. He didn't need to overpower defenders. He simply outthought them. This is the story of the joy of football. José Roberto Gama de Oliveira, known to the world as Bebeto, was born on the 16th of February, 1964, in Salvador, Brazil. Growing up in a country where football is almost a religion, the ball quickly became part of everyday life. Like so many Brazilian children, he dreamed of wearing the famous yellow shirt. But dreams alone aren't enough. Only extraordinary talent could take him there. His professional journey began with Vitória before he moved to Flamengo. It was here that Brazil first witnessed his remarkable ability. He wasn't the tallest striker, nor the strongest. Yet defenders constantly struggled to stop him. Why? Because Bebeto understood space better than almost anyone. His movement was exceptional. His finishing calm. His intelligence extraordinary. He always seemed to arrive in exactly the right place. At exactly the right time. Success soon followed. State championships. Goals. Individual awards. His reputation continued to grow. Wherever he played, the goals arrived. Supporters admired not only how often he scored, but how effortlessly he made the difficult look simple. As the years passed, Bebeto became one of Brazil's most consistent forwards. His partnership with fellow attackers flourished. His confidence grew. But it was his move to Europe that would introduce his talent to an entirely new audience. In 1992, he signed for Deportivo La Coruña. At the time, few expected the Spanish club to challenge the country's traditional giants. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. Yet Bebeto had other ideas. Almost immediately, he transformed Deportivo. His movement confused defenders. His finishing thrilled supporters. His goals turned belief into reality. The 1992-93 season announced his arrival. The following year, he reached another level. Bebeto finished as La Liga's top scorer. 29 league goals. One of the finest individual seasons ever produced by a Brazilian in Spain. He helped Deportivo challenge for the league title until the very last day. Although the championship slipped away in heartbreaking fashion, supporters had found their hero. Even today, many still regard Bebeto as one of the greatest players ever to wear the club's colors. While his club career continued to flourish, something even greater awaited. Brazil, the nation that expected nothing less than World Cup success. Pressure unlike anywhere else in football. Millions watching. Millions believing. Millions demanding victory. Alongside Romário, Bebeto formed one of football's greatest strike partnerships. They complemented each other perfectly. Romário brought instinct. Bebeto brought intelligence. One thrived in chaos. The other created order. Together, they terrified defenders across the world. The stage was now set. The 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States. Brazil were searching for their first World Cup in 24 years. An entire nation expected its heroes to deliver. Bebeto wasn't just about to play in football's biggest tournament. He was about to create one of its most unforgettable moments. The summer of 1994. The United States. The FIFA World Cup. Brazil carried the hopes of an entire nation. 24 years had passed since their last World Cup triumph. For a country that lived and breathed football, that felt like an eternity. Leading the attack were two very different forwards. Romário, the ruthless finisher, and Bebeto, the intelligent creator who always seemed to be exactly where he needed to be. Together, they formed one of the most feared strike partnerships in world football. Brazil began the tournament with confidence. Every match brought greater belief. Bebeto wasn't chasing individual glory. He was doing what he had always done. Working tirelessly. Creating space. Linking play. Scoring when his team needed him most. He understood that winning mattered far more than personal recognition. Then came the quarter-final against the Netherlands. One of the tournament's greatest matches. With the score finely balanced, Bebeto found the breakthrough. He calmly finished to give Brazil the lead. But it wasn't the goal that the world would remember. It was what came next. He ran towards the touchline. Rocked his arms like he was holding a baby. Romário and Mazinho joined him. Together, they celebrated the birth of Bebeto's newborn son. It instantly became one of the most iconic goal celebrations in football history. A moment of pure happiness. One that has been copied countless times ever since. Brazil continued their march towards the final. Waiting for them. Italy. Two footballing giants. 90 minutes couldn't separate them. Neither could extra time. For the first time in World Cup history, the final would be decided by penalties. The pressure was unimaginable. Every kick carried the weight of a nation. Bebeto stepped forward. Cool. Calm. Confident. He converted his penalty with the composure that had defined his entire career. When Roberto Baggio's famous penalty flew over the crossbar, Brazil were champions of the world. The dream had finally become reality. For Bebeto, it was the greatest moment of his career. A World Cup winner. The pinnacle of football. But he wasn't finished yet. Success with Brazil continued. He helped his country win the 1997 Copa America. Then the 1997 FIFA Confederations Cup. Adding more international honors to an already extraordinary career. Whenever Brazil needed experience, intelligence, and composure, Bebeto answered the call. His club career also continued across Europe and South America. He represented Sevilla, Flamengo once again, Cruzeiro, Botafogo, Vasco da Gama, and several other clubs before finally bringing an incredible playing career to a close. Wherever he played, one thing never changed. Goals followed. So did smiles. Because Bebeto never forgot why he started playing football in the first place. He played because he loved the game. By the time his career was coming to an end, his achievements spoke for themselves. A FIFA World Cup winner. A Copa America champion. A FIFA Confederations Cup winner. La Liga's top scorer. Hundreds of goals. One of Brazil's greatest ever forwards. Yet despite everything he achieved, people still remembered something more. The joy with which he played. Because sometimes, the greatest legacy isn't simply winning. It's making millions of people smile while you do it. Lifting the World Cup is where many football stories reach their perfect ending. For Bebeto, it became the beginning of an even greater legacy. By now he had earned the respect of football supporters all over the world. Not through arrogance, not through controversy, but through consistency. Every manager knew exactly what Bebeto would deliver. Intelligence, movement, goals, and complete professionalism. What made Bebeto so special wasn't incredible speed or overwhelming strength. It was his football brain. Long before defenders realized the danger, Bebeto had already moved. He found space where none appeared to exist. His timing was almost perfect. He drifted between defenders unnoticed. Then, with one touch, the ball was in the back of the net. He made goals look effortless. That is one of the rarest talents in football. His partnership with Romario remains one of the greatest strike partnerships international football has ever seen. They understood each other instinctively. One dropped deep. The other attacked the space. One created. The other finished. Then they swapped roles without saying a word. Watching them together felt natural, as though they had played side by side their entire lives. 4 defenders. They were almost impossible to contain. Bebeto finished his international career with Brazil having scored 40 goals in 77 appearances. An extraordinary return for one of the most competitive national teams in football history. Every goal came with intelligence. Every performance with humility. He never demanded attention. He simply earned it. His influence at club level was just as significant, especially at Deportivo La Coruña. Before Bebeto arrived, few imagined the club could challenge Spain's biggest powers. After he arrived, they believed anything was possible. He transformed expectations, inspired teammates, and gave supporters memories they still treasure today. For many Deportivo fans, Bebeto isn't simply a club legend. He is one of the greatest players ever to wear the famous blue and white shirt. As football evolved, forwards became faster, stronger, more physical. Yet coaches continued to study Bebeto, because movement never goes out of fashion. Football intelligence never becomes outdated. Young strikers still learn from the way he timed his runs, found space, and stayed remarkably calm inside the penalty area. Those qualities remain priceless. So, what made Bebeto different? Was it the goals? The trophies? The World Cup? Perhaps. But there was something even greater. He reminded us that football is meant to bring joy. Every celebration, every smile, every clever pass, every perfectly timed finish. He played with a freedom that inspired teammates and entertained millions. Even under the pressure of representing Brazil, he never seemed to lose that childlike love for the game. Very few players manage that. Today, when supporters remember Bebeto, they don't only remember the goals. They remember the baby celebration, the smile, the partnership with Romario, the World Cup, the happiness he brought to every stadium he played in. Because football isn't only about winning, it's about creating moments that live forever. Football has produced countless great strikers. Some were feared. Some were powerful. Some were unstoppable. Bebeto was something beautifully different. A footballer whose intelligence, elegance, and love for the game made him one of Brazil's greatest ever forwards. He didn't just score goals. He reminded the world why football is called the beautiful game. That's why Bebeto will always be remembered as the joy of football, and above all, a true footballing icon. Some footballers become legends. Some become icons. Zlatan Ibrahimović became something else. A phenomenon. A player whose goals defied logic, whose confidence knew no limits, whose personality was as unforgettable as his football. He didn't just play the game. He made the world stop and watch. This is the story of football's greatest showman. Zlatan Ibrahimović was born on the 3rd of October, 1981, in Malmö, Sweden. His childhood was far from easy. Raised in the Rosengård district by his Bosnian father and Croatian mother, life was often chaotic. Money was scarce. Football became his escape. The streets became his classroom. The ball became his closest companion. While others dreamed of fitting in, Zlatan dreamed of standing out. Even as a young boy, he refused to be ordinary. He played with flair. He tried outrageous tricks. He attempted impossible shots. Coaches often found him frustrating. Teammates sometimes questioned him. But Zlatan never cared about fitting someone else's mold. He believed he was destined for greatness long before anyone else did. His talent quickly became impossible to ignore. After progressing through Malmö FF's academy, he made his senior debut in 1999. Supporters immediately noticed something different. Standing over 6'5", he possessed the physique of a target man. Yet he moved with the feet of a winger. He could dribble past defenders, control impossible passes, score spectacular goals. There simply wasn't another player quite like him. Europe soon came calling. In 2001, Dutch giants Ajax secured his signature. It proved to be the perfect stage. Under legendary coach Ronald Koeman, Zlatan began transforming raw talent into world-class ability. He won 2 Eredivisie titles, a KNVB Cup, and showcased skills that left defenders completely bewildered. Then came one goal that announced Zlatan to the world. Against NAC Breda in 2004, he collected the ball outside the penalty area. One defender lunged. He glided past him. Then another. Then another. He twisted, turned, waited, toyed with his opponents, before calmly slotting the ball into the net. It wasn't just a goal. It was a work of art. Even today, it remains one of the greatest solo goals ever scored. Europe's biggest clubs were now watching. Juventus won the race. The move to Italy wasn't simply another transfer. It was another opportunity to prove the doubters wrong. Serie A was considered the toughest league in the world. Defenders were stronger, smarter, more ruthless. Many questioned whether Zlatan's style would survive. He answered in the only way he knew, by scoring goals. Following the Calciopoli scandal, he joined Inter Milan. This is where Zlatan truly became unstoppable. Season after season, he dominated Italian football. His strength overwhelmed defenders. His technique embarrassed them. His confidence inspired teammates. 3 consecutive Serie A titles. 3 consecutive Footballer of the Year awards in Italy. He wasn't just one of the league's best players. He was its biggest attraction. By now, the football world had accepted one thing. Zlatan wasn't normal. He attempted bicycle kicks from impossible angles, back heels, long-range volleys, acrobatic finishes that most players wouldn't even dream of attempting. And somehow, they often went in. Every match felt like another chance to witness something extraordinary. Then came the transfer everyone wanted to see. Barcelona. Pep Guardiola. The reigning champions of Europe. Surely, this was the perfect marriage. The world's greatest team, and one of football's biggest personalities. Instead, it became one of the most fascinating clashes football has ever witnessed. Barcelona, the greatest team in world football. Pep Guardiola, Lionel Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, the reigning European champions. On paper, it looked like the perfect move. Barcelona paid around €70 million to bring Zlatan to the Camp Nou. It was one of the biggest transfers in football history. The expectation was simple. Together, they would dominate Europe. The beginning couldn't have gone much better. Zlatan scored in each of his first 5 La Liga matches, a club record at the time. He lifted the UEFA Super Cup, the Spanish Super Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup, and helped Barcelona win La Liga. For many players, that would have been enough. But Zlatan wasn't like most players. Behind the scenes, the relationship between Ibrahimović and Guardiola began to fall apart. Zlatan believed he had been brought to lead the attack. Instead, the system increasingly revolved around Lionel Messi. Neither man was prepared to compromise. One of football's biggest personalities had met one of football's strongest-minded managers. The partnership was never going to last. After just 1 season, Zlatan left Spain. Many believed he had failed. They would soon discover they were completely wrong. His next destination was AC Milan, a club rebuilding its former greatness. Zlatan immediately transformed them. Goals returned. Belief returned. Success returned. In the 2010-11 season, he fired Milan to their first Serie A title in 7 years. Once again, he had conquered another country. The Netherlands, Italy, Spain, now Italy again. Everywhere he went, he won. Then came Paris Saint-Germain. The French club had ambition, money, and dreams of becoming Europe's next superpower. What they needed was a leader. They found one in Zlatan. Over the next 4 seasons, he completely rewrote PSG's record books. He became the club's all-time leading goalscorer at the time, won 4 consecutive League One titles, collected domestic cups almost every season, and was named League One Player of the Year 3 times. His statistics were extraordinary, but numbers alone couldn't explain his impact. He gave PSG an identity, a swagger, a belief they could compete with anyone. Then came one of the greatest goals football has ever witnessed. An international friendly. Sweden against England. The ball was cleared high into the air. Most players would have controlled it. Some would have waited. Zlatan saw something nobody else did. From more than 30 yards out, with his back to goal, he launched himself into the air. An overhead kick. Perfectly timed. Perfectly struck. The ball sailed over every defender, over the goalkeeper, and into the empty net. The stadium fell silent, then erupted. The goal won the FIFA Puskas Award. It became one of the defining moments of his career. A goal so extraordinary that even England supporters applauded. By now, Zlatan wasn't simply one of football's greatest strikers. He had become football's greatest entertainer. Every interview produced another unforgettable quote. Every match offered another moment of brilliance. Every season seemed to create another highlight that left supporters shaking their heads in disbelief. He had turned confidence into an art form, and the football world couldn't get enough. Yet, one challenge still remained. The Premier League. England. Many questioned whether a striker in his mid-30s could still dominate one of football's most demanding leagues. Zlatan heard every criticism. He smiled. Because proving people wrong had become one of his favorite hobbies. England. The Premier League. 34 years old. Most people believed Zlatan Ibrahimović was nearing the end. They were wrong. Manchester United offered him one final opportunity to prove himself at the highest level. Critics questioned his age, his pace, whether his body could cope with English football. Zlatan answered every question, the only way he ever had, by scoring goals. His debut season was outstanding. 28 goals in all competitions. The Community Shield, the EFL Cup, and the UEFA Europa League. He delivered exactly what Manchester United had hoped for. Leadership, experience, big moments. When pressure arrived, Zlatan rarely disappeared. He embraced it. Then, disaster struck. During a Europa League match against Anderlecht, he landed awkwardly. The diagnosis was devastating. A serious knee ligament injury. Many believed it was the end. After all, he was 35 years old. Most players never return from injuries like that. Not at the highest level. But Zlatan refused to accept that his story was over. His determination matched his talent. Months of rehabilitation followed. And against all expectations, he returned. It was another reminder that giving up simply wasn't part of who he was. A new adventure awaited in America. LA Galaxy. Some expected Zlatan to slow down. Instead, he turned Major League Soccer into his own personal stage. His debut was unforgettable. Coming off the bench in the Los Angeles derby, he unleashed a stunning strike from around 40 yards that flew over the goalkeeper. Minutes later, he headed in the winning goal. It was one of the greatest debuts football has ever seen. Only Zlatan could make an entrance quite like that. Goals continued to flow. Spectacular volleys, powerful headers, acrobatic finishes. Crowds filled stadiums just to watch him play. He scored over 50 goals for LA Galaxy, proving that class never disappears. Age had changed nothing. The show simply continued. Then came one final surprise. At 38 years old, Zlatan returned to AC Milan. Many believed it was little more than a farewell tour. Instead, he transformed the club once again. His leadership inspired while battling injuries. His influence inside the dressing room was enormous. He had helped restore one of Europe's sleeping giants. By the time he announced his retirement in 2023, his career had become extraordinary. League titles in the Netherlands, Italy, Spain, France. Over 570 career goals. More than 120 appearances for Sweden. His country's all-time leading men's goalscorer for many years. Dozens of individual awards. Hundreds of unforgettable moments. But statistics only tell part of the story. What truly separated Zlatan from everyone else was belief. He believed he belonged on the biggest stage long before anyone else did. He embraced pressure. He welcomed criticism. The louder the doubters became, the better he seemed to perform. His confidence wasn't simply entertainment. It became one of his greatest weapons. There may have been more complete players. There may have been players who won more trophies. But football has rarely produced anyone quite like Zlatan Ibrahimović. A striker with the touch of a playmaker, the strength of a heavyweight, the imagination of a street footballer, and the confidence of a superstar. He scored impossible goals. He delivered unforgettable quotes. He won wherever he went. And he entertained millions every time he stepped onto a football pitch. Some footballers are remembered for what they achieved. Others, for how they made people feel. Zlatan did both. Because he wasn't just one of football's greatest strikers. He was its greatest performer. Its greatest showman. And above all, a true footballing icon. Before you go, thank you for watching True Footballing Icons. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. One final question. Where does Zlatan Ibrahimović rank among the greatest strikers of the modern era? Is he in your all-time top 10? Let us know in the comments below.